The last golden rays of the sun stretched long and thin across the dusty ranch yard. It was a time when the world seemed to hold its breath, watching the day say goodbye. The big, open sky above the hills turned from bright orange to soft purple, then deepened into a sleepy blue. With each passing moment, the ranch fell quieter, as if all the animals and plants were getting ready for bed. The cheerful sounds of the day, like the clang of a hammer or the low moo of a cow, had faded away. Now, only the soft whisper of the wind through the tall grass could be heard, a gentle sigh against the stillness. Shadows grew long and cool, creeping across the weathered barn and the sturdy fences. They hugged the corners of the main house, making the windows look like dark, sleepy eyes. The air grew cooler too, carrying the smell of dry earth and pine trees from the distant woods. It felt like the ranch was wrapping itself in a big, quiet blanket. This peaceful silence, however, felt a bit lonely tonight. It wasn't the happy quiet of a day well spent, but rather a hush that seemed to hold a secret sadness. Every corner, every fence post, every stone seemed to whisper of things left unsaid, of feelings hidden away. The vastness of the land, usually a comfort, now felt like a wide, empty space around a heart that yearned for something more. Elias, with his broad shoulders and steady hands, moved with a quiet strength through the fading light. He had been finishing up in the stables, making sure the horses were settled for the night, their soft wickers a comforting sound in the growing dark. He was a man of few words, but his eyes missed nothing. As he walked toward the main house, he saw Liam standing by the porch rail, looking out at the vast, darkening landscape. Liam was the ranch owner, and usually he carried himself with a proud, sure stride. But tonight his shoulders seemed a little slumped, and his gaze was far away. Elias noticed the way Liam's fingers picked at a loose splinter on the wooden rail, a small, nervous habit. The silence that had settled over the ranch wasn't just in the air. It was in Liam, too. Elias could feel it, a heavy quiet around the man he had worked for and secretly admired for years. When Liam finally turned, his eyes met Elias's for just a moment. In that brief glance, Elias saw it, a deep well of sadness that the twilight couldn't quite hide. It wasn't just tiredness from a long day. It was something deeper, a worry that tugged at Liam's usually bright spirit. Elias knew that look. He'd seen it before, tucked away behind a forced smile or a quick change of subject. The ranch might have gone silent at dusk, but it was the silence in Liam's eyes that truly caught Elias's attention, making his own heart feel a little heavier. He knew, with a quiet certainty, that something was troubling Liam, and it wasn't just the fading light of day. Liam barely registered Elias's presence at first. His gaze was fixed on the horizon where the last sliver of light was swallowed by the dark earth. But his mind wasn't really seeing the hills or the sky. Instead, it was trapped in a swirl of old worries, like dust devils rising from a long-forgotten field. A heavy weight pressed down on his chest, a familiar ache that had been his unwelcome companion for too many years. He thought of his father, a stern man who had loved this ranch with all his heart, but had always expected Liam to be someone he wasn't. There were words said long ago, sharp and stinging, that still echoed in Liam's mind, telling him he wasn't good enough, not strong enough, not right enough to run the ranch or to live the life he truly desired. These memories coiled in his gut, making him feel small and uncertain, even now, years after his father was gone. The ranch itself, his family's legacy, felt like another burden. There were always repairs, bills, decisions that seemed too big for one man to make alone. He loved this land, every inch of it, but sometimes it felt like a giant, demanding beast, always hungry for his time and his energy. And beneath all that, a deeper, more personal sadness stirred. It was the feeling of being alone, of carrying all these weights by himself, with no one to truly understand or share the load. The quiet of dusk, which should have brought peace, only amplified these old problems, making them roar in his mind like a wildfire. He felt trapped, not by fences or walls, but by the echoes of his past and the fears of his future. Elias watched Liam for a moment longer, understanding that the silence wasn't just about the fading day. It was about something deep inside Liam. Without a word, Elias turned and stepped into the dim living room of the ranch house. The main lights were off, leaving the space in a deep twilight, matching the mood outside. He walked over to a small wooden table where an old-fashioned lantern sat. It was made of dark metal and clear glass, a simple thing that had been used on the ranch for generations. With practiced movements, Elias unlatched the top, pulled out a match from a small box, and struck it against the rough wood of the table. The tiny flame flickered, casting dancing shadows for a second before he carefully brought it to the lantern's wick. A soft hiss, then a small, steady flame caught, growing brighter inside the glass globe. Elias gently lowered the glass, securing it in place. A warm, golden light instantly bloomed from the lantern, pushing back the encroaching shadows. It wasn't a harsh, bright light like electricity, but a soft, inviting glow that seemed to spread comfort as much as illumination. The room, which had felt cold and heavy moments before, now felt softer, cozier. The light touched the worn rug, the old photographs on the mantelpiece, and the sturdy wooden furniture, making everything look a little less stark, a little more welcoming. Elias, holding the lantern, looked at Liam, a gentle smile playing on his lips, a silent invitation for Liam to step out of the darkness of his thoughts and into the gentle warmth. The sudden burst of warm, steady light pulled Liam from his swirling thoughts. It was like a gentle hand reaching out, tugging him back from the dark edge of his worries. The heavy weight in his chest didn't vanish completely, but it eased a little, just enough for him to take a deeper breath. The shadows outside still loomed, but inside the room, the soft glow of the lantern created a small, safe haven. It chased away the gloomy feeling that had clung to the corners, replacing it with a quiet comfort. Liam slowly turned from the porch, his eyes adjusting to the inviting glow. Elias stood there, holding the lantern, his face bathed in the soft, flickering light. His gentle smile wasn't loud or demanding. It was simply there, a quiet warmth that matched the lantern's glow. For a moment, Liam felt a tiny spark of hope, a flicker in the dimness of his own heart. He looked at Elias, really looked at him for the first time since dusk had fallen. Elias's steady gaze held a kindness that Liam rarely saw directed at himself. In Liam's own eyes, a small question began to form. It wasn't spoken, but it was there, a silent plea. Asterisk, why are you doing this? What is it you see? Asterisk, it was a question born of surprise and a tiny, fragile bit of hope, wondering if this warmth, this care was truly meant for him. The lantern's light seemed to hold the answer, promising a story yet untold. Elias held the lantern steady, its light dancing in Liam's questioning eyes. He saw the flicker of hope there, mixed with the lingering shadows of past hurts. Elias took a slow, deep breath, the soft glow making his own face seem gentle and calm. He knew this was a moment that could change everything or nothing. The air between them, thick with unspoken feelings, seemed to hum with a quiet energy. Then, in a voice that was low and steady, a voice that carried the warmth of the lantern light, Elias spoke. "We're not done talking, Liam." The words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. They weren't a question, but a statement, a gentle command. Liam blinked, surprised. The question in his eyes deepened, shifting from why to what. Elias wasn't just offering comfort. He was offering a path forward, a chance to finally break the silence that had surrounded Liam's heart. Elias's gaze was direct, kind, and full of a quiet strength. He didn't mean just talking about ranch business, or the weather, or the usual small talk that kept people at safe distance. He meant the true, deep-down talking that Liam had avoided for so long. He meant the feelings that had been buried under layers of duty and sadness. He meant the stories that needed to be shared, the burdens that needed to be lifted. It was an invitation, wrapped in a few simple words, to open up, to trust, and to finally let their real selves be seen by each other. The lantern's light seemed to grow a little brighter, illuminating the unspoken truth in Elias's steady eyes. Elias's words, "We're not done talking," echoed in the quiet room, sounding both hopeful and scary to Liam. For a moment, the warm light of the lantern seemed to dim, replaced by a cold memory. Liam's mind flashed back to a different evening, years ago, when he had tried to talk about his deepest feelings with his father. He remembered the tension in the air, the way his father's jaw had tightened, and the harsh words that followed. It had been about Liam's dreams, his desires, things that didn't fit into the man of the ranch picture his father had painted. The talk had quickly turned into an argument, full of anger and misunderstanding, ending with Liam feeling completely alone and misunderstood. The sting of those words, the feeling of being rejected for who he truly was, had never quite faded. It had built a wall around his heart, making him scared to share his true self with anyone ever again. Now, facing Elias's kind, steady gaze and hearing his invitation to talk, that old fear wrapped around Liam like a cold shroud. What had happened again? What if Elias, despite his gentle smile and warm lantern, would also turn away, or judge him, or simply not understand? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Opening up felt like tearing open an old wound, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to more hurt. It was easier, safer, to keep everything locked away, to bear the heavy weight alone, even if it meant living in a quiet, lonely sadness. The memory of that bad talk made his throat tighten, making the idea of speaking his truth feel impossible. Liam's hesitation was clear in his stiff posture, the slight tremble in his hand, and the guarded look that had replaced the question in his eyes. Elias saw it all. He understood that old hurts could dig deep, making new trust feel impossible. He didn't push. Instead, with gentle movements, he set the lantern on a small table between them, letting its soft light fill the space. Then, he moved a chair closer to where Liam stood and sat down. "Liam," Elias began, his voice still low, like a calm river. "I know talking can be hard, especially when old talks haven't gone well." He paused, letting his words sink in, showing Liam he understood without needing to hear the painful story. "But this is different. We're different." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes kind and steady. "It's important, really important, for us to be honest with each other now. About everything. About what's on your mind, what worries you, what you hope for." He gestured around the quiet room with an open hand. "This ranch, this life, it's too big, too important for us to carry things alone or to pretend things aren't there. If we don't talk, truly talk, then nothing can ever really change. Nothing can get better." Elias's words weren't a demand, but an earnest plea. He wasn't just talking about ranch problems, but about the unspoken feelings, the secret hopes, the deep connections that could only grow in the light of truth. He wanted Liam to know that this was a safe space, that whatever Liam said, Elias would listen with an open heart, ready to understand, not to judge. The warm light of the lantern seemed to echo his promise, a beacon of trust in the quiet room. Liam looked at Elias, then at the flickering flame of the lantern. The steady, warm light felt like a small, safe harbor in the stormy sea of his thoughts. Elias's words, so calm and understanding, had softened the hard edges of his fear. It wasn't easy, not at all, but something in Elias's patient eyes made Liam want to try. He cleared his throat, the sound a little rough in the quiet room. It's the ranch," he started, his voice barely a whisper. "Everything feels like it's falling apart sometimes. The new fence needs fixing, the wells running low, and the market prices for cattle, they just keep dropping." He paused, looking down at his hands, which were clenched tight. "It feels like I'm always fighting, always trying to keep my head above water." As he spoke, the words, once trapped, began to flow a little more freely. And it's not just the ranch, Elias." He looked up, his gaze meeting Elias's. "It's me. I feel like I'm not good enough. My father, he always wanted me to be a certain kind of man, a tough rancher who didn't feel things so deeply." A sigh escaped him, heavy with old pain. "But I do feel things, Elias. I worry. I doubt myself. And sometimes I just feel so incredibly alone." The confession hung in the air, raw and honest. It was like opening a rusty gate, letting out a flood of emotions he'd kept hidden for so long. He spoke of the pressure to uphold his family's name, the loneliness of leadership, and the quiet ache of a heart that felt misunderstood. Each word was a step out of the shadows, a small offering of trust in the gentle glow of the lantern. As Liam spoke, his voice sometimes catching, sometimes barely a whisper, Elias simply listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer quick fixes or empty reassurances. His gaze remained steady, fixed on Liam's face, showing a deep, quiet attention. The only sounds were Liam's confessions, the soft crackle of a lantern's flame, and the distant hoot of an owl outside. With each worry Liam shared about the ranch, Elias nodded slowly, a small, understanding movement that told Liam he wasn't alone in seeing the challenges. When Liam spoke of his father's expectations and his own feelings of not being good enough, Elias's expression softened further. He didn't say, "I know how you feel," because he knew no two hearts felt exactly the same. Instead, his eyes held a gentle sympathy, a shared sense of the heavy burdens life could sometimes place upon a person. Every now and then, Elias would offer a small, encouraging hum or a slight tilt of his head, tiny gestures that spoke volumes. They were like quiet assurances telling Liam, asterisk, I'm here. I'm truly listening. You can keep going. Asterisk, there was no judgment in his gaze, only a deep well of kindness and acceptance. Elias understood that what Liam needed most right now wasn't advice, but simply to be heard, truly heard, without fear of being dismissed or criticized. The lantern light made Elias's face glow with a quiet strength, a comforting presence that made Liam feel, for the first time in a very long time, truly seen and cared for. After pouring out his heart about the ranch and his father's ghost, a new, deeper silence settled between them. Liam had revealed so much, yet the biggest, most guarded truth still remained hidden, a trembling bird beneath his ribs. Elias's steady gaze, full of kindness, gave Liam a strange, new courage. He'd never felt this safe before, this understood. It was as if the lantern's warm light had melted away some of the icy fear around his heart. He took a shaky breath, his eyes meeting Elias's directly. This was it. This was the moment he might break everything or finally truly be free. Elias, he began, his voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion. There's something else. Something I've never told anyone. He watched Elias's face, searching for any sign of change, of judgment, but saw none. Only that unwavering kindness. For a long time, Liam continued, his voice gaining a tiny bit of strength. I've felt more than just friendship for you, more than just respect. He swallowed hard, the words feeling huge and heavy as they left his lips. I love you, Elias, not just as a friend or a good hand on the ranch. I love you in a way that feels different, deeper. The confession hung in the air, fragile and exposed. It was the truth he had carried in secret, a flame he'd kept hidden for fear it would be extinguished. His heart pounded, waiting for Elias's reaction, ready for anything, yet hoping for everything. In the soft glow of the lantern, Liam had finally laid bare the most vulnerable part of his soul. Liam's confession hung in the air, a delicate, brave whisper. He braced himself, expecting he didn't even know what. Rejection, confusion, perhaps even a quiet, polite turning away. But what he saw on Elias's face was none of those things. Instead, a slow, gentle smile spread across Elias's lips, chasing away any lingering shadows from his face. It was a smile that reached his eyes, making them crinkle at the corners with warmth and a deep, knowing tenderness. He didn't look surprised or scared or even a little bit uncomfortable. He looked relieved, happy. Elias reached out, his big, calloused hand gently covering Liam's clenched fist that rested on his knee. His touch was soft, comforting, sending a jolt of warmth through Liam. Oh, Liam, Elias said, his voice husky, filled with an emotion Liam couldn't quite name but felt deep in his own heart. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that. He squeezed Liam's hand lightly. I feel the same way about you. I have for a long, long time. Elias's eyes, shining in the lantern light, held a quiet confession of their own. More than just respect for the ranch owner. More than just a friend. It's always been deeper for me, too. I didn't know if you'd ever feel it, or if I could ever say it. A wave of disbelief, then overwhelming relief, washed over Liam. The heavy weight he'd carried for years, the secret burden of his love, began to lift, replaced by an astonishing lightness. Elias felt the same way. The words were a melody, a promise, a miracle unfolding in the soft glow of the lantern. The world seemed to breathe out with Liam as Elias spoke his truth. It was as if a heavy, dark cloud that had hovered over both their hearts, unseen but felt, had suddenly drifted away. Liam felt a lightness spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't known was possible. The tight knot of fear and loneliness that had resided there for so long unraveled, leaving behind a profound sense of peace. His shoulders, which had been tense and hunched, relaxed, and a deep, shaky breath escaped him, carrying away years of unspoken burdens. Elias, too, seemed lighter. The quiet strength that was always part of him now had a joyful glow. His eyes, fixed on Liam, sparkled with an open happiness that mirrored Liam's own. The gentle squeeze of his hand was a silent promise, a warm connection that spoke more than words ever could. It wasn't just Liam who had held a secret. Elias had carried his own, and now, in the shared light of the lantern, both were free. The relief was like a spring rain after a long, dry spell, nourishing and refreshing their spirits. It filled the room, making the familiar space feel brand new, full of possibility. The old worries about the ranch, the echoes of his father's words, they didn't vanish entirely, but they seemed smaller, less daunting, now that they weren't being faced alone. Liam felt a connection with Elias that was stronger and deeper than anything he had ever known, a true partnership of hearts. They looked at each other, two souls finally unfurling, bathed in the soft, golden promise of the lantern light. With the heavy cloud lifted, the room felt brighter, even though the only light came from the lantern. Their hands were still clasped, a silent promise between them. The conversation shifted, no longer burdened by old pain, but filled with a new, exciting energy. So, Liam started, a small, hopeful smile gracing his lips. The fence, maybe we could use that new wire I saw in town. The stronger kind. It was a small thing, a ranch detail, but it felt different now, shared, full of possibility. Elias nodded, his eyes warm. And that, well, we could look into getting a new pump. A stronger one, together. The way he said together made Liam's heart flutter. It wasn't just about fixing the ranch anymore. It was about building something together. They began to talk, not just about repairs, but about dreams. Liam spoke of wanting to try new crops, maybe even a small herd of specialty cattle. Elias, in turn, shared his ideas for improving the irrigation system and bringing in new, efficient tools. Their voices, once hesitant, grew stronger, weaving together like threads in a warm tapestry. Beyond the ranch work, they spoke of their own lives. I always thought I'd be alone here, Liam admitted, looking at Elias with open affection. Just me and the land. Elias squeezed his hand. You won't be. Not anymore. We can make this place, our place, truly ours. He spoke of quiet evenings by the fire, of shared meals, of walking the fields side by side, not just as owner in hand, but as partners in every sense. The future, which had once felt like a long, lonely road for Liam, now stretched out before them, bright and full of shared adventures, each new plan sparkling with the light of their newfound hope. The last of their words about future crops and shared dreams faded into the soft hum of the lantern. It sat on the table between them, a small sun in the quiet room, its golden light dancing and swaying. It had witnessed their fears, their confessions, and now their blossoming hope. Their hands, which had found each other naturally, remained clasped. Liam's fingers, once so tense, were now relaxed and intertwined with Elias's strong, warm ones. He looked at Elias, and the reflection of the lantern flame in Elias's eyes seemed to hold a promise of a bright tomorrow. There was a peaceful joy that settled over them both, a quiet understanding that this was just the beginning. On the wall behind them, the lantern cast their shadows, tall and intertwined. They weren't dark or lonely figures anymore, but happy, joined shapes, swaying gently with the light. These shadows, once a symbol of the unseen burdens, now danced together, a playful mirror of the two men, united in heart and spirit. The ranch outside remained silent at dusk, but the silence inside the house was no longer heavy or sad. It was a comfortable, peaceful quiet, filled with the warmth of shared love and new possibilities. Liam leaned a little closer to Elias, a soft smile on his face. He wasn't alone. He wouldn't be alone ever again. Holding hands, bathed in the comforting glow, they were ready. Ready for the sun to rise, ready for the challenges, ready for every new beginning that awaited them, together. The lantern glowed, a gentle guardian of their newfound love.